Somto at 29 and no man has looked at her twice. Even the Agbero on the road has a wife.
I am not less because I am not yet married. My time will come too. Who are you raising your voice to in my house? Shut up!
They said nobody would love me. They said I was praying for nothing. They had no idea what God was building in the silence.
In the town of Nnewi, where compound gossip traveled faster than the morning breeze, Somtochukwu carried her cross with a smile so convincing that nobody knew it was heavy. At 29, she was the firstborn of 3 daughters. Her sewing shop sat at the end of Obiora Street, a small neat room with a single machine, bolts of fabric stacked against the wall, and a handwritten sign above the door that read Somto Stitch and Style. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Her 2 younger sisters had done what their mother called the wise thing. Chidera, 26, had married Emeka, a Port Harcourt businessman with 2 cars and a generator that never went off. Ogechi, 24, had married Ifeanyi, a Lagos contractor who wore Italian shoes and set money every month. Both weddings had been large, expensive affairs. Both times, Somto has sewn her own ashebi, smiled through every photograph, and danced with a joy she borrowed for the occasion. Their mother, Mama Ogabi, was 50 years old and sharp-tongued as a seam ripper. She had a gift for making her eldest daughter feel like a problem that refused to be solved. Somtochukwu, your mates are carrying children on their backs and you are here carrying thread, she said one morning, not looking up from her pepper she was grinding. Somto said nothing. She packed her measuring tape, kissed her mother's cheek, and walked to the shop. That was her way. In public, composure. In the shop, when the last customer left and the generator hummed its lonely sound, she would bow her head over her sewing machine, let the tears fall quietly, then wipe her face and pray. God, you have not forgotten me. You cannot forget me. She believed it. Most days she believed it. She locked her shop that night, looked up at a sky full of Nnewi stars, and whispered, "Something is coming." She didn't just know it will arrive. It torn trousers. The Ogabi family meeting happened the last Sunday of every month. It was supposed to be about unity. Mostly it was about performance. Chidera arrived first, stepping out of a black Camry in a coral-colored lace blouse, a fresh gele that sat on her head like a crown, and heels that clicked against the compound floor like a declaration. Behind her, no Emeka. He had a business trip, she said smoothly. Nobody asked twice. Ogechi came next in an Uber. She made sure to announce it loudly, wearing sunglasses indoors and a wrist full of bangles. Ifeanyi was in Lagos handling something. She smiled when she said it. Her left cheekbone, hidden under 2 layers of foundation, held a fading yellow bruise that had been purple 5 days ago. Nobody saw it. Nobody was looking. Somto arrived on foot, her plain Ankara dress clean and pressed. She had sewn it herself, carrying a pot of ofe she had cooked since morning. "Ah, our sister the tailor has come," Chidera said in the voice she used when she wanted to sound like she was joking but wasn't. "Still single and still cooking for other people's husbands," Ogechi added, laughing. The aunties laughed politely. Mama Ogabi said nothing, but her own silence was its own commentary. Somto set pot down. She smiled. At least the soup will taste like love. Later, when Chidera and Ogechi were holding court in the parlor, showing phone wallpapers of their homes, their kitchen tiles, their husband cars, Somto sat with the younger cousins and helped a 12-year-old fix a torn hem on her dress with a needle and thread she had kept in her bag. You are always fixing things, the little girl said. Yes, Somto said softly. God made me that way. That night in her room, a room she shared with memories and prayers, she opened her Bible to Psalm 27 and read until the words became a lullaby. Then she cried. Then she slept. Tomorrow she had others to feel. What Nnewi did not know, what the gele and bangles and the coral lace carefully concealed, was that Chidera's marriage was a house with a cracked foundation. Emeka drank, not socially, not occasionally. He drank the same way some men breathe, automatically, desperately, as though sobriety was the enemy. He came home some nights, smelling like brewery and swinging like a man fighting shadows. Twice, Chidera had slept in the toilet with the door locked, listening to him break things on the other side. She told nobody. To tell someone was to admit that her beautiful wedding had produced an ugly life. Her mother had praised her so loudly at that wedding. Her friends had envied her. She could not afford to be pitied now. So she wore sunglasses. She laughed loudly at family meetings. She mocked her elder sister because it was easier than being honest about herself. Ogechi's story was different, but equally hidden. Ifeanyi was a handsome man who knew he was handsome and treated that knowledge like a license. He had a woman in Lekki, another in Abuja. Ogechi had found receipts, hotel bookings, and the perfume that was not hers on his shirt collar. When she confronted him, he laughed and said, "Is it not normal? At least I come home." She had no answer for that. Her mother had told her to manage her husband. Her pastor had told her to pray over him. So she prayed and managed and smiled at family meetings and called Somto's single life a tragedy. But some nights, Ogechi would sit at her balcony in Lagos and look at nothing and think about a version of herself she had buried too quickly. Neither sister ever called Somto to say, "I am not okay." And Somto, who stitched torn things back together for a living, never knew that the two people mocking her wholeness were themselves in pieces. He came on a Tuesday. Somto remembered because Tuesdays were her quiet days. Few customers, soft Igbo gospel playing from her small Bluetooth speaker, a bowl of garden egg on the table beside her machine. The door opened and a man stepped in. He was tall, the kind of tall that made small rooms feel smaller. His shirt was a simple white cotton piece and faded at the collar, with a small tear under the left arm. His trousers were dark chinos that had seen better days. A clean split ran along the inner seam of the right leg. His shoes were clean, though. That she noticed. A man who kept his shoes clean in a torn outfit was either broke or careless, and he didn't look careless. He looked around the shop with calm, curious eyes. "Good afternoon," he said. His Igbo had an Abuja overlay, someone who had been away a long time. "Afternoon," Somto said, pulling her glasses down. "What can I do for you?" He held up his trousers sheepishly. "This store this morning. I have a dinner tonight. I didn't know where else." He stopped. "Someone on the street pointed me here." Somto examined the sim. 15 minutes, 200 naira. He blinked. "That's all?" "That's all." He sat on the wooden bench by the door while she walked. He didn't scroll his phone. He watched her hands move when she played a song he recognized, an old Onyeka Onwenu track. He smiled to himself. You know the song? She asked without looking up. My mother used to play it, he said. Mine too. A small silence settled between them, the comfortable kind. When she handed back the trousers, the repair was so clean the tear had become invincible. You are good, he said quietly, like it was a serious observation and not a compliment. I know, she said. He laughed, genuine, surprised. He paid, thanked her, and left. His name, she didn't ask. She didn't think she would see him again. She was wrong. He came back on Friday with a kaftan that needed taking in at the shoulders, then the following Tuesday with a pair of suit trousers that needed hemming. Then, the next week, with nothing to repair, just a container of puff-puff his neighbor had made and a simple, I was passing, I thought you might want this. Somto looked at the puff-puff, then at him. You don't even live on the street. No, he agreed, sitting down on the bench like it already belonged to him a little. His name was Daniel, Daniel Okafor. He said he was in Nnewi, visiting an old friend and handling a few things. He didn't elaborate and she didn't push. She had learned that people reveal themselves in layers, and patience was its own kind of wisdom. When she noticed, he listened when she spoke, really listened the way people do when they aren't waiting for their turn to talk. He never checked his phone in her presence. He asked about her work with genuine curiosity, not the polite, half-interested questions she was used to. Why tailoring? He asked one afternoon. Because fabric don't lie. She said, you cut it, it tells you exactly what it is. You sew it well, it holds. You rush it, it tears. I like honest things. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, I have never heard anyone describe their work like that. How do people usually describe it? Like a job or a hustle. He looked at her. You described it like philosophy. She smiled. It was the kind of smile that came from somewhere real, not the borrowed smile she wore at family meetings. 3 weeks after the torn trousers, he asked if he could take her to get pepper soup at a small restaurant nearby. She said yes before she finished thinking about it. Over pepper soup and chewed malt. They talked for 3 hours about family, about faith, about what it meant to want a quiet, honest life in a noisy, performative world. She walked home that night, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hopeful, quietly, carefully hopeful. Love. Somto had decided long ago should not be rushed. She had watched women around her leap into arms that looked strong and find themselves falling. She had sewn wedding dresses and bridesmaids' gowns and known sometimes that the joy in the room was more fragile than the fabric. So she took it slowly with Daniel. They saw each other twice a week. He would come to the shop in the late afternoon when the light was golden and the street outside was settling into its evening rhythm. Sometimes he brought suya, sometimes zobo. Once he brought a small bag of fresh ube from a market woman and they ate it together without speaking much, which felt somehow like a deeper conversation than words. He spoke about his mother in Enugu, the way people speak about someone they deeply respect. He laughed easily, but not carelessly. When she told him about the family meetings, the mockery, the way her mother sighed when she looked at her, he didn't offer solutions or empty comfort. He said, you are the kind of woman who makes people feel small without meaning to. Sometimes people mock what they don't understand. She looked at him. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know that you repaired my trousers so perfectly I couldn't find the tear. I know you have Onyeka Owenu on your speaker and Psalm 27 on a sticky note above your machine. I know you give your leftover fabric to the girl across the street who makes doll clothes. He paused. I am paying attention, Somtochukwu. Nobody used her full name like it was something. She looked away before he could see what crossed her face. 6 weeks in, he held her hand walking home. She let him. 7 weeks in, he said, I want to continue this properly, with intention. She said, then be patient. I need to know you are real. I am the most real thing that's walked into your shop, he said. She laughed, but she believed him. It was Mama Ogabi who demanded it. Word had reached her through a cousin, through a neighbor, through the invisible telegraph of small shop proximity that Somto had a man coming to her shop regularly, laughing, eating suya. Mama Ogabi called her into the kitchen one evening, the way she always did when she wanted to say something important while pretending to be busy. Who is this man people are seeing you with? His name is Daniel. Daniel who? Daniel from where? What does he do? He's a good man, Mama. Good man? She hissed. Good man doesn't pay school fees. Good man doesn't build a house. Bring him here so I can see this good man with my own eyes. The timing, as God would arrange it, landed on a Sunday, the same Sunday as the monthly family meeting. Chidera was there, fresh from a week, with a plaster she explained as a kitchen burn. Ogechi was there, quieter than usual, with eyes that had recently done heavy crying. Somto arrived with Daniel. He wore a clean but simple Akara shirt and plain trousers, nothing flashy. He had chosen it himself. He greeted with the full Igbo kneeling and palm clasping that made the older aunties nod approvingly. His voice was calm. His eyes were kind. But Chidera saw the simple shirt. Ogechi saw the absence of a car. Mama Ogabi took in the whole picture in 5 seconds. The whisper started before he left the room. After he stepped outside to take a call, Chidera leaned over to Ogechi and murmured loud enough, after all her fasting and prayer, this is what God sent? A man who cannot even afford new clothes. Ogechi laughed behind her hand. Mama Ogabi said nothing, but her eyes said enough. Somto sat straight. She did not fold. She smiled the smile she had perfected, wide enough to be convincing, empty enough to protect her. But inside, something ached. God, I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. 3 words repeated until they became a wall. That night was the hardest one. Somto sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, shoes still on, and pressed her hands flat against her thighs the way she did when she needed to hold herself together. She could hear the generator outside. She could hear her mother's television through the thin wall. She did not cry immediately. She sat with the ache first, the way you sit with a wound before you clean it. Chidera's voice played back in her head after all her prayer and fasting. There was something cruel about the way it was said, not just the mockery, but the precision of it. They knew she prayed, they knew she fasted, and they had sharpened their laughter against that exact tenderness. She finally let the tears come. Quietly as always, she had become an expert in quiet crying, not heaving, no sound, just the steady fall of water down her face in the dark. She picked up her Bible. It fell open. She had opened it so many times at the spot. To Isaiah 49, her eyes found verse 23 without searching. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. She read it 3 times. Then she wiped her face. She thought about Daniel, about the way he said her full name, about the way he had greeted her family with dignity, even in his simple clothes, about the conversation they had last week when he said, Somto, whatever I am or am not, I want to let you know that I see you clearly. She hadn't known what he meant fully then. She reached for her phone and typed him a message. Today was hard, but I am okay. Good night. His reply came in less than a minute. You are stronger than you know. Sleep well. We will talk tomorrow. She held the phone against her chest. Something about Daniel was different. Something she couldn't name yet. Something that felt strangely like the answer to a question. She had been praying so long, she had almost forgotten the words. It happened on a Saturday. Daniel had asked her to meet him at a quiet spot outside Newi, a small event space off the Onisha road that a friend managed. He said he needed to tell her something important. His voice on the phone had been careful, measured, the way voices get when they are carrying something heavy. Somto wore her best Ankara dress, the one with the yellow and green pattern she had sewn for herself last Christmas and saved for occasions that deserved it. She arrived to find Daniel already there, standing beside a black Land Cruiser that was definitely not there the last time she saw him. He wore a simple but clearly expensive kaftan. His watch caught the light. She stopped, walking. He came towards her, hands open. Somto, I owe you an honesty I should have offered earlier. She stood still. Talk. He took a breath. Daniel Okafor, the man with the torn trousers, the pop-off, the bench in her shop, was the founder and CEO of Okafor Build and Design Group, one of the largest private construction and real estate firms operating in Abuja and Lagos. He had come to Newi 6 weeks before their meeting to quietly scout land for a new project. His clothes that day had been casualties of a site inspection in his friend's compound. He had walked into her shop, not knowing she would change everything. He had kept it quiet, he said, because he had been lied to before by people who loved the life more than they loved him. He needed to know her first, the real her. You showed me who you are without knowing who I was, he said. Every conversation, every honest thing you said. I fell in love with Somtochukwu the tailor. The rest of me just comes with her now. If she'll have it. Somto was quiet for a long moment. Then, you could have told me sooner. I know, I am sorry. You bought Popov as a rich man and made me think it was a humble gesture. His mouth twitched. The Popov was genuine. She laughed before she could stop it, and in the laugh was the release of every prayer, every tear in the dark, every smile borrowed for family meetings. Ask me properly, she said. He went down on one knee. The wedding was not in Nnewi, it was in Abuja, a quiet, beautiful ceremony at a garden venue that Somto had helped plan in her own detail-oriented way, choosing the fabric for the tablecloth herself and sewing her own reception dress because, she said, no one else's hands should touch what she wore on that day. The photographs will later circulate on family WhatsApp groups with the kind of stunned silence that says more than words. Chidera saw them first. She was seated in her mother's parlor. She had returned to Nnewi 2 months prior, unable to endure another night of Emeka's rages. She had no car now. No coral lace Sundays, just a suitcase and a fading bruise she could finally let heal in the open. Ogechi saw them from the same parlor. She had come home a month after Chidera, quietly in Anuba, with 2 bags and a broken spirit. Ifeanyi had brought this Abuja woman home and told Ogechi the arrangement was changing. She had packed that same night. Both sisters sat in their mother's house. The house that they had mocked Somto for never leaving, and stared at photographs of their elder sister in a dress she had sewn with her own hands, laughing beside a man in a suit that cost more than both their bride price combined, against the backdrop of an Abuja garden in full bloom. Mama Ogabi looked at the photos longest. She set the phone down and said nothing for a long time. Then, quietly to no one in particular, she was praying. All that time, she was praying. In Abuja, Somto Okafor, ne Ogabi, stood at the balcony of their home, a real home with her sewing room already set up beside the master bedroom, and called her mother. No bitterness, no I told you so, just, Mama, I'll send a driver to bring you to visit. Come soon. That was who she had always been, the girl who cried in the dark and smiled in the light, who stitched torn things back together, who waited, not weakly, but with the fierce patience of someone who knew exactly what she was worth. They that wait upon the Lord shall not be ashamed. She had waited. Heaven had answered. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this story or this story resonated with you, let me know in the comment section. Also, do well to subscribe, like, and share. See you on our next story. Bye.